everyone, and welcome back to Story of the World Highlights. Today we'll be discussing Chapter 26. Chapter 26 brings us back to Russia, and this time going over another great Russian ruler, Catherine the Great. So let's get started. Some little key things you should know about Catherine the Great is that she also really admired the West. She was really into the modernized thinking of the day and was very interested in modernizing Russia. Now, despite this, she also still believed in an absolute monarchy, which is confusing that she agrees in both, but she did. And again, as we remember, absolute monarchy believed that God made the ruler, and that no one should challenge him or her. Now, with all of that in mind, it's interesting that she believed that because she wasn't even Russian. Also, she wasn't born into the Russian royal family. So it's interesting that she also believed in absolute monarchy. Let's take a look at her childhood. So she was the daughter of a German prince, who was a prince of one of the German lands, and a Swedish mother. Now, her Swedish mother actually did have a connection to the Russian throne a little bit. Her cousin had married Peter the Great, actually. So they were connected a little bit. Now, their family growing up was Lutheran. Lutheran was a very popular Protestant religion in the German lands, led by someone named Martin Luther, who was also German. So they grew up Lutheran. Over in Russia, we have Peter Ulrich and his aunt, Empress Elizabeth. Now, in Russia, they're not Lutheran. They are Russian Orthodox. And they did things a little bit differently in Russia. Empress Elizabeth, she was not married and didn't have children, so Peter was going to be the heir to the throne. And Empress Elizabeth wanted to pick somebody that she thought would be a fitting empress for him. And she picked Catherine. So when she picked Catherine, she brought Catherine to the Russian court and had her marry Peter. The conditions, though, was that Catherine had to become Russian Orthodox. She had to change her religion. That was part of the rules. Now, Catherine didn't really want to change her religion. Her dad didn't want her to change her religion. Also, she didn't want to marry Peter. Peter was always drunk. He was always drinking, and he was very mean to his servants and to other people. But her mom said, "You can be an empress. I can be the mother of an emperor, mother-in-law of an emperor. Oh my gosh, let's make this happen." And so with the push of her mother and Empress Elizabeth, she was married to Peter and did become Russian Orthodox. So what was it like now that she was married to Peter? Well, Peter was becoming more and more of a madman. He would just go on rages. He would just throw parties. He would always be drunk. He would never really pay attention to Catherine. He ignored her. If he did acknowledge her, he was insulting her. He was just a not really good person. While this was all happening, Catherine spent a lot of time alone, reading books on philosophy, military tactics, history. She even learned Russian. And Peter wouldn't even learn Russian. He was in love with Prussia. He thought Prussian military was the best of the time, and he wanted to be just like that. And so he would only speak German. This is the future king of Russia, not wanting to speak Russian. Not a good look. Now, when Catherine first had her child with Peter, Elizabeth just stormed in and took the baby and wouldn't even let Catherine see the baby for the first 6 weeks. Elizabeth was a little bit of a control freak. She wouldn't even let Peter be part of meetings of government. So he didn't really learn how to be a good emperor. He just spent all his time drinking and partying and pretending to play war with his toys and his servants. So Elizabeth controlled everything. And she decided she would raise the children of Catherine and Peter by herself. Now, when she finally died, Peter did become Tsar. But as I said, he wasn't prepared for this job. His first decision was that he made the military start dressing like Prussians and fighting like Prussians. Now, Russians didn't like Prussia. Prussia was next door. Prussia was eager to expand, and they had been in battle with Prussians in recent times. So the military did not like Peter for this. Peter also spent all his money on parties and ridiculous things. So he became poor and decided to fix that by stealing from the church. He stole their land and sold it. He went in and forced soldiers to go and rob the churches of their royal and church items. And the soldiers didn't like that they had to do that. They felt like they were becoming bad people for following that. So he had quickly made enemies of both the military and the church, which were two important people who controlled things in Russia. Now, there were rumors that were starting to say, Catherine, she's so smart. She's so educated on military tactics and government. But Peter, he's not. And he's doing bad things for Russia. Maybe she should be in charge. These rumors were starting to spread more and more. And eventually, Catherine herself decided that Peter also needed to go. And on June 28th, 1762, there was a coup. There was a revolt to change Peter. Now, what had happened was Peter was out of town, and Catherine had sent the military to surround him and trap him there. She dressed like an empress that day, and she went down to the barracks where the military was. And she said, he says he's going to kill me. He's just ruining Russia. He needs to be stopped. And they supported her. And they followed her to the head of the church. And he was already not a fan of Peter, agreed to make her empress. And that day she was crowned empress, and people in the streets cheered for this change. Now, a week later, the guards had informed Catherine that there had been a fight between him and a local nobleman, and unfortunately, he accidentally died. But Catherine didn't ask any questions about this. She just told the people, "Oh no, Peter has died. He had a stomach ache. I'm so sad. If you want to come and pay your respects, you can come see him, as is tradition in the church. When people died of the royal family, their body was on display at the church for some time, and people came and paid their respects." Now, when people came to pay the respects for Peter, they noticed that he was clearly had been strangled. He was purple, there was bruising around his neck, and people were like, stomach ache? But Catherine didn't ask any questions. And so people didn't ask any questions after that. And now it was the time and reign of Empress Catherine. So let's look at what her reign was like. During her reign of 30 years, she grew Russia. Russia had expanded into many different territories, including taking over land from the Mongols and from the Turks. And she also was able to cross the ocean and take land in Alaska and North Canada, which were not called those names at the time. But these days, it's that land that she claimed. She also, like I said, was very into modernized ideas. So she made universities for women. She wanted there to be equality for the genders. She also encouraged sciences and studies of science. And so she even made a woman the head of the sciences in Russia. She even made hospitals and brought in Western doctors to start doing Western medicines and making the health better for the Russian people. And with all of this, you would think, wow, she's very enlightened, just like the Enlightenment period. However, remember, she still believed in absolute monarchy, and she felt that everyone should follow the rules equally, but she should be the one to make all the rules. without any questions. Now, if you disagreed with this, you were likely found dead. So no one tried to challenge her. Overall, during her time, she made Russia really strong and wealthy. However, the serfs, the poor people in Russia, did grow poorer and had even worse conditions during her time. However, she did modernize Russia and brought it into the new time and made it very advanced compared to when she first started. Well, mostly. She still believed in absolute monarchy, so it wasn't completely modernized. However, she made lots of great improvements, and so that is why she was known as Catherine the Great. And that's the end of this chapter. I'll see you next time for Story of the World. Bye-bye.